Hey, what up, everybody? It's your boy Nitro from Life's Resurrection Project. I still want y'all praying for America, and y'all got to remember. Are you serious? Hell, the Rottweiler's crying. Everybody, he's like it's a big baby. You can't get in there to his mama. Get over here and lay down. Come here. Get up there. Get up there and lay down. Alright. Take two. Alright, anyway. So, I can say everybody, it's we the people. We gotta let the government stop dividing us. And pray in the Lord's name that God comes down and peels back the ugliness from all these sinners, evil government, politicians. You got to remember, one nation under God, formed out of a democracy of Republicans and Democrats, and they're supposed to be working together for us, we the people. And sometimes I lose faith in humanity. Today, we're going to do a special on a documentary from
I can't even stand.
last year, East Kentucky flood. It's a full documentary. But I want you to run over and show the Daily Yonder some love. And so, yeah, I said it right. The Daily Yonder. Yonder. This is a documentary he did, or the Daily Yonder did, last year on the Eastern Kentucky floods. So, here we go. That's a lot of water, y'all.
We knew it was going to rain, and
Blackie, Kentucky.
that night.
It's one of those things you wake up in the middle of the night and you think, it's going to flood.
As I was on duty, I got the first national weather alert for the area of aerial flooding. Well, I get up, I was like, is it even raining? I was like, I'm going to go over here and check the river. We have a river gauge on the side of the building over here on Main Street. So I was like, I'll go check the river. I checked the river, we have 7 feet of water at 2 a.m. This is 2 a.m. Ordinarily 2 feet. So we're at 7 feet.
I could hear it raging, and my old house had been leaking a little bit, and I heard it start up pouring. So I got up and set buckets and pans.
After I had went upstairs, we heard a big loud crash against the house. It kind of felt like an earthquake, and that's when the foundation blew out in the back of the home, and then the water filled up my basement. We got about 10.5 feet of water in less than 10 minutes. I mean, it was fast. It came in, it was like ocean waves outside.
And again, the reason I'm doing this, everybody, because I wanted to remind everybody, in an emergency situation, in a crisis, in a flood, in a tornado, in planes crashing into the World Trade Center, we all come together as Americans, and we don't see in color. So I don't know, with all this new stuff, them trying to separate us, you got to remember, when it all comes boiling down, we all come together. So I'm doing this documentary and on this Daily Yonder YouTube channel. I loved it. I watched it earlier, and I wanted to share it with y'all because it helps you bring faith back in humanity. And that's the one thing we need is faith. That in the end, we'll all come together to have each other's back. And if you like this content, please remember to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell for upcoming videos. I know we're trying to reach 5,000. We're about 50 subscribers from 4,000, so please subscribe, y'all. And let's continue with the video.
Part of the story is I was moving out. I was buying my first house. I've been saving the last 5 years, and I actually kept trying to buy this house because I grew up in McRoberts and my family lives right up the road, and I knew all my neighbors, and my sons lived here for 3 years. And I made this post about what a good home this had been and how important it had been to us, and it had gotten us through a pandemic. And so finally, I ended up falling asleep around 2 a.m. And we had an air conditioning unit going upstairs, and I was tired. I fell asleep, and about 2:20, all those alerts kept coming through on my phone. Mine kept coming through in Spanish, so I didn't know what they were saying.
About 1:30, next door neighbors started knocking on my door and told me that I need to get out, that the floodwaters was already in the backyard. It was raising quick. So I had 2 little dogs, 2 little Jack Russells. So I said, okay. I said, can you help me with my dogs? And they said, yeah, So he got 1 dog, and I got the other dog. And by then it was about 2 o'clock, and it went from about 100 foot from my house to I was wading water up to my knees.
It came up so fast. We have goats, chickens. We have a potbelly pig. We lost
6 goats.
6 goats. We lost half our goats.
And we saved the pig.
And that was probably a sight to see. She
Yeah.
was well over 200 pounds, closer to 3 probably. We folded up a tarp and put it under her belly. And each of us got on the side of her and floated her out.
And we had to float her out. I couldn't let her drown.
Yeah, we had to try to save her. But
She was sitting there, nothing but her nose and her eyes and her ears sticking out of the water, and that was just pitiful. I couldn't bear that.
I opened the back door and looked out, and I said, oh my God in heaven. And he jumped up and he said, what's wrong? I said, you better come and look. And when he looked out the door, he realized the water was already up to the carport.
25-30 minutes is this high. And is everything I can do to keep my feet on the ground.
And there's a lot of stories from friends of their friends learning about the flood when they put their feet to the floor and their legs are getting wet, and or water's lapping their elbow, against the bed. I mean,
I was terrified for people sitting on their roofs, and the current was too strong. We couldn't get them with just the kayaks. Last summer Walmart had kayaks on sale, and I thought, where are they going to ride these? Air River is not even high enough. It's like a creek. But thank God everybody bought them because they saved a lot of lives.
I went into her house, as it being chest deep, she were on the couch. It was obviously about neck deep to her sitting on the couch. I was able to float her up and got her right here. And I was like, man, I couldn't get her over there. So actually I just found some adrenaline, and I just was able to put her in that kayak, and I said, we have to go. We have to go now. I cannot swim.
here where we live, the water might rise in the back and the creek in the back and get in your yard. But when I got up, I looked out the window on the main highway here where I live on, and it was a river. There was no road.
Floods used to be that it would rain really hard and everybody would go to the football field and slip around in the mud, and then you'd come home, get whooped because you were all muddy, but the water would have went back down. This was not like that. This was bad. Trucks floated down the road. It was a bad deal.
And with everybody, this was down the East Kentucky flood. But living in the Quad Cities, I lived in between Illinois and Iowa. So that's Davenport, Rock Island. I was born in Moline, Illinois, grew up in Rock Island, Illinois, and we had the Mississippi River. My grandparents owned a bait shop, Credit Island Bait and Tackle, for about 45 or 50 years. and we had to fight the river almost every year. So sandbagging and floods and everything has always been a part of Nitro's life. So, and I just felt like I needed to share this video to give everybody a little bit of faith in humanity. So, say your prayers, because tomorrow's not promised, everybody.
And here came all the way up to this. So this whole house was basically filled with water. There's a woman that lived here. She needs a walker to get around, and she held on to the top of her porch, floating in the water for 5 hours until someone was able to come and rescue her. And she's in her late 70s.
One guy in particular said, when you go to bed and it's all there, and you get up the next morning and it's all floating away.
Being a photographer, I wanted to get out and photograph what I could. Well, I couldn't photograph very much because I could only go about 100 yards out of my driveway down Route 7 toward Hazard and just saw what it was. I mean, it was just mind-blowing. One of the saddest things I saw is there is a pink Mickey Mouse child's blanket hanging from a tree right up here, up the road here. Some little child somewhere on up the North Fork of the Kentucky River, that belongs to that child. So that was tough. Some things I didn't photograph that I saw, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I ended up making probably about 2,500 images total of the flood. Some of the hardest photographs I've ever made in my life. And I've seen, being a photojournalist in Cincinnati, I've seen some gruesome things before, you know, and had to photograph some sad things and things like that. But this hit home, and it was very difficult to do. The other thing that really blew me away was the ISOM IGA.
So we go over Highway 15, we turn down on 7, and when we turned down on 7, the shopping center was in a river, actually. It was just covered up with muddy water. Even though you were looking at it, you still couldn't really believe that it was true. I knew then that we were in trouble.
And that's sad, seeing that a family-owned business completely devastated. And I've been there with my grandparents, where the bait shop had 4 to 5 foot of water in it. After we worked for a week and a half, putting 4 foot of sandbags all the way around the place. And then all of a sudden, the river rose 10 foot above flood stage and got above the sandbags and completely wiped out the entire bait shop and having to rebuild. So let's keep going, everybody.
And going in this community, she lives over in Knott County, but what she does for Letcher County is amazing. And to see the power of those floodwaters. Everybody thinks the flood just water just comes up and it goes down. No. And it was like Godzilla and King Kong when they fought. The freezers were ripped off the walls and piled, and just shelves and groceries and everything washing toward the front doors.
The water was going in like a circle of motion. It was like a river. It was not still water. It was moving water. And I listen to him all the time, and he talks about when he opened the front door of his house, it sounded like the ocean. And that's the way the water sounded. When I first seen the store, I was in shock, and for about a week, I actually walked around in shock, didn't know what I was going to do.
And right there, you see it, everybody. That's a community coming together, praying. You don't see no color there, do you? I don't see no color. I see a community of human beings praying for each other.
I thought that after a flood like this, that there would be like boots on the ground. The government comes and I'm from the government, I'm here to help you or whatever. But it was a learning process where eventually it set in that there was really no help coming, and at least not in that form. People coming and doing this business of mucking houses out and getting all of the things out and then gutting the walls and then applying, mold killer. That was just us learning and watching YouTube videos on how to do it. And that is kind of a shocking thing to realize, that it's a sort of ragtag group of volunteers doing it.
Just seeing the need was just so grand, and still is. It's just overwhelming, and it's just could be hard to make decisions like, okay, which house do we go to?
That's really what's so devastating about these floods. They were so extensive. They impacted so many watersheds that for weeks after the flood, my dad or family would be on the phone with someone and they realize, oh, a lifelong friend, they got flooded too. But because everybody's just been, working so fast and so hard to get things cleaned up, you couldn't check in. You just couldn't check in on your neighbors as much as you'd like to.
You are piecing together a life. You're piecing together culture.
One of the things people say is how they're just so grateful and thankful that they didn't lose their life or lose a loved one. Most of us agree that human lives are more important than tangible objects. I think it should still be reminded that tangible objects do connect us to people and memories.
As people began to hear, I call them the hillbilly refugees that have moved out of here. They knew we weren't going to get any help from anybody else. And they started calling and messaging on Facebook. What's it look like? Send me pictures. What do you need? So I just tell them the best I could, and when the roads opened up, they rode in here.
I didn't know who the people were who were showing up to help me, or it was people who I never expected to show up to help me. Like literally, people who have very openly disagreed with me on politics, and it's become like a
Did you hear that? Americans helping Americans. You don't see no color. This is white people, black people, yellow people, brown people, all coming together to help each other. These people didn't have nothing. And people came from all over the United States to help these people. That's called humanitarian aid. That's called looking out for your neighbors. And that's what we need. That's what we need now. We need these politicians to stop. We need the Lord to come down and peel back the can and show the evil of these political parties and their greed and what they're taking from us. These poor people went through this and the government did not even lend them a hand. They had to count on GoFundMe pages. They had to count on Facebook and reaching out to organizations. Enough on that. I'll start the video, everybody.
a lot in the sand for us, and we just can't talk. They were showing up and like unloading my stuff. Or I literally turned around at one point, and when I burst into tears was 4 teenagers who I had no idea to this day what their names were. Just walked in my house and started picking stuff up and moving it out. And I just burst into tears because I was so overwhelmed, but so much was being taken off of me in that moment of not having to do it all myself.
We're still feeding quite a few. We do breakfast, lunch, and dinner. A lot of the workers, like the Rubicon groups that come around, we feed them lunches and dinner. The campsites where the FEMA's there put the campers, we take food to them every day. We deliver to like other areas, don't have people close.
A small little kitchen gave out over 100,000 meals. Come on, everybody. We need to open up encampments for these people that are homeless, because it's not just because they're homeless and ain't got a job. 90% of them are addicted to drugs. We need to open up healthcare facilities and put one block for heroin addicts, put one block for meth addicts, put another block for mental health. We need to open facilities all over these United States and help these people. We need to stop ignoring them. We need to stop the homelessness. The only way to stop the homelessness is to help them get over their addictions and then start teaching the young, the kids, there's more to life. We need to start opening up things for these kids to do so they don't have to walk out their door and walk by somebody sitting on a corner using drugs. All right, everybody, I'm ranting, so here we go.
We deliver meals for them.
I mean, the general public can just come in and eat and don't have to worry about paying for it or anything, you know.
While we were doing the cleanup crews, folks were also still coming into our mutual aid headquarters to get different supplies that we had on hand, and we were also giving cash out the door to folks who needed it. It was really obvious a lot of people had difficulty in asking for that help and receiving that help. You know, one thing that I learned real quick was to make it very clear that it was not my money that I was giving to people. You know, I think that made people more willing to accept the cash. You know, one thing that was really difficult was just people saying how ashamed they were, and that was really hard because it's like, it's not their fault. There's nothing about this that's their fault. That was really hard, and trying to alleviate that feeling of shame that people felt.
So eventually, after about 2 days, there was a load of water came with some paper towels and toilet tissue and some paper plates. You know, I just continued to cook here because we had electricity and people were coming here and getting hot meals. We put out a call for the four-wheelers to come, and they hauled what supplies we could get our hands on out to people that couldn't get out. And I noticed that the ones that have lost so much have been trying to help everybody else.
My resources were my connections over 60, almost 67 years on this earth. We've got 40,000 people around the world that subscribe to what we do. That's a big audience. So the first thing we did was compile an Amazon wish list. And every day for about 2 weeks, UPS designated a truck whose only thing they had in it was to come to that church. I mean, some are little items, some are big items. And they came. Anything we asked for, they came. One day, I went down to the flood relief, you know, and I was down there and I was riding my four-wheeler and checking on people and taking people things they needed or whatever I could do. And I was down there at Blackie one day, and the magistrate's wife called me over to the side and said, it's okay, but we think you're in the mob. And I said, no, I'm not in the mob. I said, I just have a lot of friends and a lot of places that want to help.
We had a little GoFundMe, and to be able to see people make donations of $25 and $50, but they would always make a comment of, that was my store when I grew up. So it's generational. They can remember good times. I remember coming in and they would give me a sucker, or I can remember coming in and they would give me a cookie. And so it's just good memories of coming somewhere where someone cares. Father Cisco, who is a priest out of Lexington, who has made 2 trips up here. He came the first time, bought $20,000, came back the second time, bought another $50,000, and had made a commitment to do another 25.
That father out of Lexington, Kentucky, come down and bought $25,000 to this store owner. And then he come and brought another $50,000. And then said he was bringing another 25. That's $100,000 for that woman to reopen her store. And I tell you what, there's no color in this photo right here, everybody. Let me flip this around. Look at that. Look at that woman crying. That's a white man helping a black family. There is no color. That's what I see there. Is 4 human beings helping each other.
Because he wants to help. He wants Eastern Kentucky to come back up stronger. I've never known a Catholic. Never, I mean, I'm sorry, but I haven't. I'm Baptist, so I've never dealt with the Catholic. But, I've learned to love him, care for him. It just gives everybody a little bit more variety in their life, I think.
It shows us too that it don't really matter what denomination you are. When it comes down to us, we all want the same thing. And we all want to help and have servant's heart for one another.
And that's what he said. He said, someone asked him, but she's not of your faith. He said, that has nothing to do with it. She's a human. Doesn't have anything to do with color. Doesn't have anything to do with anything. It's just compassion for other people.
We're just kind of hanging out, wore out, and wondering what to do. We just plotted our course minute by minute, And this big rental truck pulls in, and these three guys get out, and they can't even stand up. I was like, these guys are drunk. And they said, are we welcome here? And I said, well, yeah, everybody's welcome. And they said, we've come to cook for y'all. And they got these coolers of meat and brought them in here. And it was the finest of hamburger and hot dogs and steak. And they had cans of Spam. That's the funny thing. So the next morning, when I get down here, they said, we got you breakfast over here. Well, hillbillies love Spam. I mean, most of them do. And they fixed me up a Spam sandwich on white bread. Now, I really never tasted nothing that tastes no better that morning. And give me a cup of coffee. And they stayed here with us 3 days. I don't think they drew a sober breath while they was here. And they just kept on cooking. That's why I call them drunk angels. They come out of nowhere and they went right back into nowhere. And we don't know. And they had ear gauges and they had big full sleeve tattoos. I mean, they were unlikely looking angels, but I really believe they were angels.
I guess you could say that there is a part of that is good in the sense that, it's neighbors helping neighbors and a community helping out. But at the same time, we only have so many resources and volunteers, and we eventually hit a point where we were very exhausted and we ran out of volunteers. And it just speaks to the need of, institutions with greater resources and money and manpower to be available to help during times like this.
It makes you sad. I mean, I'm gonna go back there and I'm gonna get up every morning, look out the door, and you're gonna see family that's gone, friends that their house is level. It kind of reminds you of a ghost town. But you gotta do what you gotta do. I'd rather people move stuff back. A lot of them says they may, a lot of them says they may not. So it's just one of them things that you have to wait and see what they're going to do.
I just don't want people to move away. The people who stayed have been so brave to try and stay, and to find, and we can do a lot with a little here. We always have been able to. And for those who are moving away, I get it, I understand, but I just hope that we can find a way to build housing up off of the creeks, flood-proof our bridges, and use this disaster as, instead of the end of us, as a catalyst for a new beginning, to look at everything that makes it hard to live in Eastern Kentucky and fix it.
Immediately after the flood, there were reporters here from different places, and one of them said, well, what would you tell the people out there who say that they ought to just move out of there? And my answer after a few seconds thought was, I would probably give those people the same answer that folks in California who live in wildfire country would give, or those people who live in earthquake-prone areas, or on the coast with hurricanes, or near a volcano, is that we don't want to. This is home.
So this is the house that I grew up in. My parents bought it or moved in '72, so they've been here 50 years now. And that's my uncle and aunt's house next door. And then flipping around this way, this is my great-grandmother's house. My grandmother left it to me when she passed. This is my grandparents' house here. This area is, they call it number 2 bottom. The reason they call it that, it was the 202 mine for consolidation. You know, and that's one thing about the flooding, particularly in this part of the county, is a lot of the homes are close to the river because that's where the mines were located, and that was some of the flat area that the coal company had to construct these homes. So, you know, people, you know, talk about why people live so close to the water. Well, Consolidation Coal Company made that decision for everybody about 100 years ago.
Part of the struggle has been that we have been so closely connected to a single industry. It has really driven our economic base and our personality and who we are for a century.
Once the coal boom or bust happened, you know, economically it's really difficult to figure out, well, how do you move away, or how do you leave a place? And I haven't mentioned, like, it's a beautiful part of the country. You know, it's like a really pretty place to live, and you don't have to explain that to people this time of year. You know, you can just kind of look around.
And again, everybody, unless you've driven down through Kentucky, Tennessee, up through the Appalachian Mountains, up in Virginia, West Virginia, some of the most beautiful, breathtaking scenes you've ever seen in your life. But that's where some of America's poorest populations live. But yet here we can send $100 billion in 3 years to a war that we have no business being in. But we can't help our own here in this country. And that's sad, everybody. That's sad.
This is my favorite photograph so far. It's really nice. Now it has issues.
I really like the way his arm's set.
Yeah, I love this. And I love these leading lines. They all lead you to his face. When the latest started bringing pictures of her dad's shop, and I had to look at those. It's part of the process. And that looks to be an original drawing. You see the mold and this one just like reaches in your heart and grabs it.
So this is my dad's tattoo shop, the parlor room, and it was doing pretty good, and the flood got to it, and so a lot of the artwork they had in there got destroyed, and a lot of their equipment got pretty dirty, and so they are working on cleaning it up and stuff, and they've moved a lot of the stuff out of the shop.
To be honest with you, right after the flood, I ended up in the hospital because I overdid it, and I lost my spirit. That spirit started coming back, and my strength, and then looking at her photographs, she's been photographing every week her dad in that shop and seeing those. So then one day I just said, okay, now's the time. I just click, 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 here they are, let's run through them, let's see what we got. I didn't remember individual photographs until I started going back through them, and like, you know, that's pretty good. That tells a story, this tells a story, you know. I think the other thing that affected me is when I passed those checks out for flood relief, and I went to all these people's houses, and I actually photographed some of those people, and I looked at those right away, and I started hearing their stories. I think that had a big effect on it too. My mind is in the right place right now, I guess. The sad thing is there's a lot of people that are affected by the flood directly and indirectly whose minds are still not in the right place and may never be in the right place again.
I heard this term that I think has helped me a lot, and it's post-traumatic growth. There was a guy came, and he used that terminology, and it seemed like I just grabbed onto that, you know, because we've been neglected here, and some of it was our own neglect. You know, I'll shoulder part of the blame. And so, you know, we've kind of been wiped out, so to speak. So to me, we don't have anything else to do but build back and build better.
On this property here, Homes is a nonprofit developer of housing. We do a lot of things. Our main mission is affordable housing solutions, and we've been here before the flood. We'll be here long after the flood. But this is a piece of property that we bought, raw property that developed into 4 building sites. The house that we're working on today is for the Morgan family who lost their home in the flood.
You know, it could have been worse. We could have not.
They're not got out.
We could have lost our, one of our. We could have lost my dog. He's a child.
We're trying to get people onto higher ground, out of the floodplain, and this will help us to do that.
God has answered my prayer. I'm going to get my home. And I said, it may take us a little bit, but we're going to have a home before the end of the year. And I'm so excited about that home. We done went and bought some furniture.
Oh, yeah.
I think I'm still processing how to think about the future. And, years ago we did this project called My Story to Tell, and someone had wrote on this postcard that we were collecting, I stayed so I could make a difference. I was wrong. And that postcard has always stood out to me of like, I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to dedicate my life to something and then turn around and feel that way. And this flood has kind of been that moment of like, do I stay? Can I tough it out to stay and stay in a way that I want to make it better and think it can be better? I'm blessed and privileged to say I could leave if I needed to. Not everyone has that here. And I can't leave the people who don't have that option here.
I don't know what comes next. I mean, I do think this flood was a once in many generations event. There's opportunity in this. I mean, people can build back a little better than before. They can, prepare for the next flood, because I think it's on everybody's mind with climate change. Is the next 500-year flood going to come in the next 5 years?
We already fight for any attention we get here. And so how do we connect it instead of fighting for those resources? How do we connect it to say we understand what Pakistan is going through, we understand what Alaska is going through, we understand what Puerto Rico is now going through. Like, how do we build bridges so that we're not fighting for resources, instead we're addressing what's actually happening?
Quite frankly, it's going to require a lot of federal money, and an interest in supporting a region that's really supported a lot of the rest of the country's growth, over the past 100 years.
And that's it, everybody. If you know anything about the Appalachian Trail, Appalachian coal mines, them people supported this country for the last 100 years. But yet here we, as politicians and as a government, with their greed, has forgotten about it. And they want to keep that war machine moving. So, back to the story. Sorry.
That's what I hope happens, but I think it's really uncertain.
I'm 67 years old. The amount of money that we will have to do to reopen that store is going to be about 1.5, almost $2 million. I'd worked for 50 years to get it to that part. We was completely paid for, but I prayed all my life that Simon would come in and take the store. Never pushed him, never said anything, just silently waited to see if he was going to come in. And then 2 years ago, he decided, hey, I want to be here. I planned on staying with him for the next 4 or 5 years until this happened. And then I really just had to sit down with Simon and Arthur and say, okay, I think the community needs a store. I think it's a huge inconvenience for them not to have a store. And I miss them. And then it's 25 other people here who are trying to make a living. And I want to take care of these people. They've been with me for a lot of years.
We have to understand that it's not necessarily what we want to do and the way we want to go about it. Like, we never wanted this to happen, but you know, it's what God wanted for us. So we've accepted that, and we're going to just try to continue to carry out what He wants us to do. Mom worked 50 years and got the store paid off, so I'm next in line to work another 50 years and try to get it paid up. And whenever me and my wife have kids, try to do the same what her dad did with me, not force them into it, but you know, hopefully one day they'll continue the legacy and all that type of thing.
We plan on opening April 1, 2023. This is our home. This is our people. And we have to stick together. And it's been devastating, and it's been bad, and it's hard. But we've just got to look forward to better times and make it come back better. I think we can come back better. I think we can come back stronger. I think we can come back more together. I really do.
Everybody, just wanted to share that video with y'all, to give everybody a little bit of hope with what's going on in our government today. I know, as we the people, we have each other's back. People need to reach out to their local churches. They need to get right with Jesus. You need to find the Lord and bring Him into your heart. And then you need to reach out to family and friends. And with that, please like, subscribe, and share, and hit that notification bell for future videos. Peace, y'all. Nitro's out.